All right, in this video essay for Module 5, I will discuss or explain Elizabeth Brake's critique of model monogamy in detail, the benefits of polyamory according to Brake, whether or not I believe polyamory is moral, if I believe it to be desirable, why or why not. And I'll try to keep the video within at least the 7-minute time frame in which we have been allotted. So discuss this first part of the essay prompt is the critique that Brake does of model monogamy. So her critique doesn't actually specifically target model monogamy. In a sense, based on the way I understand it through the course reading, is that she critiques it by critiquing polyamory. And she does so in a way that kind of leave it open for interpretation, because she approaches things essentially in the argument of, polyamory is A, B, and C. Well, if polyamory is A, B, and C, then we need to consider model monogamy as being D, E, and F because of G. So she doesn't specifically dive into and critique model monogamy in a way that the whole section is dedicated to it. It's just vicariously through the discussion of polyamory in which she does critique it, but it is still there. So the first part is kind of the arbitrariness of monogamy. And so when she goes through and discusses it, she kind of discusses the terms of polyamory being not ethically wrong, in a sense that people in those relationships tend to be more educated, and I heard that was one of the points in the video lecture of people typically tend to be more educated. The children do better in polyamory relationships. So she kind of critiques model monogamy in that way of, like, if people are going to take that stance, well, the same can be said for polyamory. So a lot of it comes down to, at least pointing out, from what I can see, the critique is what you can say about model monogamy, you can say about polyamory. There can be that discussion, which I don't think is wrong. Another point is the autonomy of it. So with the model monogamy, she believes that the relationship is going to take on the role of what the expectations are. So you get your role expectations. For instance, like men's going to take out the trash. The woman would clean up the living room, which I think everybody should be cleaning up. But so you have your limitations on your personal autonomy, which I don't think is necessarily bad, but I'll save that till the end. So the ethics, she talks about people being kind of pushed into, because model monogamy is seen as this kind of the standard, that if somebody doesn't necessarily want that, but they do like the person, that they could be pushed into that, kind of coerced into that kind of relationship. And essentially that part of that coercion, or, hey, if you love me, we need to do this type of marriage, that could be kind of ethically wrong in that particular situation, because they're being pushed into a relationship type that they don't necessarily want, which it makes sense. So through the critique, she like I said, she critiques polyamory through the benefits of polyamory, or critiques monogamy through the benefits of polyamory. And this comes through the personal freedom, the support, like I said, with the children. Another thing is like the flexibility in polyamory. When there's not, when you're looking at monogamous relationship, it's pretty rigid, because it's just two people, right? Which makes sense. So it's kind of just stating obvious caveats to a monogamous relationship, but then kind of framing it in a way that you can't have those things. So that is another critique. To get on to the next section, so I don't run out of time, the benefits according to the benefits of polyamory. Like I said, it's going to be the flexibility in relationship dynamics, and so and this was mentioned in the video lecture that you have flexibility in there. And so with polyamory, you're going to have, because it's such a sensitive type of relationship, you typically see that rule generation or policies for the relationship. So it's like, hey, if we're going to do this, and this needs to be respected. So there's a lot of rules when it comes to polyamory. So in some instances, if I could argue with like break, in some instances in polyamory, you're going to see a lot more restrictions. Monogamy, I guess the whole thing would be restrictive just because it's considered the two, but I digress. The support, so the diverse support, sources of support. I mean, you have more people, so you have more support. And again, kind of just stating those, to me at least, obvious ideas of it, and then presenting it as a positive. So let's discuss to the morality. When it comes to morality, it's really important to point out that morals, and I'm going to define this really quickly, but morals, I'm trying my hair, morals and ethics are different. So morals is going to, I'm going to refer this to, this is going to be the definition I use, is the principles or rules of right and wrong behavior that are typically going to be based on one's personal beliefs. So you're going to get my personal beliefs, the cultural norms, religious teachings, and then the ethics is going to be the systematic study of what is right and wrong. So and that's going to be particular context, and essentially what you're doing is you're applying, to find out something's ethical, you have to apply your morals to it. But ethics are going to be specific to each thing, so it can't be a blanket application. So whether or not I believe that polyamory is moral, I think it depends. And that's kind of like the most legal answer I can give, because I myself am not without sin. In that sense, I've had a relationship where now it wasn't relationship with two ladies at the same time. So in that instance, ethically applying to that specific situation, I mean, none of us were all married. So it honestly just depends. I can't say my blanket morals apply to everyone. Apply to myself, for instances, because of course, going into that hedonistic nature of, it was fun to have two girlfriends at one time. Was it necessarily right? No. I mean, if we're speaking statistically, we could look into seeing, taking a survey of what polyamorous relationships are out there, and then monogamous, and then figuring out exactly which ones have lasted longer. I don't know the actual stats of which one is. So yeah, to answer that, if I believe it's moral, it depends. Do I believe it's desirable? Desire, meaning long term, short term. Short term, meaning a night. I could see it being desirable. Long term, no, I couldn't see it being desirable. Only for the fact is like, kind of, dealing with, not necessarily dealing with, but being in a relationship with one woman, and just a relationship as a whole of just two people wanting to come together to make it work, I think is already difficult enough. I think if you add any more elements, that just stresses me out thinking of it. So I don't believe it's necessarily desirable ethically. Again, I think it just depends on the specific context. And then Brake's critique just comes through sharing the benefits of polyamory, or at least opening our eyes to it. And I think that's the main point of the readings.